I want to show you how you can paint a snow landscape in gouache, and I'm going to do a quick study of this landscape with grass and snow. I'm using titanium white, cadmium yellow, ultramarine blue, raw sienna, caput mortuum, and a bit of ivory black, and I'm squeezing a bit out of each tube onto a moist paper towel so the paint will stay wet longer. I'm arranging the colors by color temperature. I've already mapped out the basic shapes in a light pencil sketch so that I have a reference. Throughout the video I'm going 2 times faster than the speed I've recorded this in. I use a flat brush to paint in a warm middle tone for the grass patches, and I'll leave the snow patches white for now, so I'm painting around them. And I do this to give me a warm middle tone that I can work around throughout the painting. You can see I'm adding a few darker spots here and there with a caput mortuum, mixing it in. And I'm starting with a very watery paint mix, almost like watercolor. You could also use watercolor in this stage. But since I have started with gouache, I'm going to use that. Then I add a dark blue-black mix for the background, so ultramarine blue and a bit of ivory black, and start to add darker bits to the grass areas. And as you can see, I'm leaving the brush strokes very loose and crude almost, but I really don't worry about that because it will all be painted over and over in a later stage of the painting. Now I'm adding white to my raw sienna. As you can see, white cools the color down a little bit, but it also adds volume to my shapes. So I have dark and light planes on my shapes, and that helps me to bring out the three-dimensionality of the scene a little bit better. And I try to think about how the light falls on these patches and about the texture of the grass. I'm darkening the background a bit more, so adjusting the values here, the contrast. And now I'm using the edge of the brush and a bit of a light blue mixture for the shadow areas in the snow patches. And again, I'm painting these in a very rough manner. I add darker and lighter color with a dry brush, always thinking about how I can achieve a more grassy look. So I'm thinking about the direction of the grass and about the texture. And as you can see, I'm also reworking these grass patches a lot in this stage to build up the different textures. Starting to introduce a few more colors like this sort of yellowy mix and more lighter colors, and you can see it starts to look like a scene instead of just painted patches of color. And throughout the painting I'm always readjusting the contrast with darker mix and lighter colors. So here I'm adding back in the dark areas of the grass. I'm also introducing this sort of dark red-brown mix, which I think adds a lot of warmth and a lot of interesting contrast to the bluish snow. And I'm using a very dry brush for this, so very little water. I'm using my brush with a lot of white to redefine the snow patches a bit and make them brighter and warmer. I don't care if I overpaint the blue shadows because I can always repaint them, restate them. Gouache allows for a lot of trial and error when you're painting, and you can correct your painting mistakes carefully with a thin layer of dry paint. As long as you don't add more water and work quickly, this will probably work out, so give it a try. And as you can see, I've added a bit of yellow, a bit of raw sienna to my white to give the snow this sort of golden glow. And of course, I'll repaint the blue shadows later. So I'm trying to think in volumes here and in the different directions that these planes show. And here you can see I'm re-adding the shadow to the snow. And I've switched to a smaller brush here for a minute. So this is still a flat brush, but it allows me to make thinner lines. So now I'm using the edge of my bigger brush to add the grasses, first in front of the yellow grass patch and then on the smaller patches. And with a dry brush I add more contrast. And now I'm using a rigger brush to add the thin grass blades. And these rigger brushes have long bristles and make nice thin and organic looking lines. And I'm trying to use different colors, different yellows and different earth tones for the grass blades so that they don't look all the same. And with the same rigger brush, I'm starting to add thick, warm white brush strokes in the background area to mimic the grass waving in the wind that's catching the reflection of the sun. And I'm using the paint straight from the tube here, so I'm not diluting it a lot, so that it can really go in an opaque layer over the darker background. And this is really easy to do with gouache. So I had already painted another version of this scene, and I had shown this in one of my recent sketchbook tours, and one of my viewers asked if I could show a tutorial for a scene like this, and I decided to repaint it. And if I have to be honest, I like the first version of the painting a bit better because it seems more spontaneous, a bit more loose to me. And this can often happen when you repaint a scene, so it can lose a little bit of that ease and of that spontaneity. And I'm also painting in more blue shadow lines very carefully with a fine brush. And these blue shadows are really what gives the snow its three-dimensionality, otherwise it would just be a white blob. So I'm removing my masking tape at this point because I'm basically done with the sketch and I won't make any big changes to it at this point. And I'm adding a few more brush strokes here and there. So a few details, a few more dark brush strokes to add in, particularly these small dark patches in the snow, and you can see these immediately pop out and are points of interest for the eye. And I'm adjusting the contrast here and there, adding a few darker strokes with the rigger brush. If you like these small gouache landscapes, then let me know in the comments. I will explore them a bit more if I know you want to see them. And that's all for today. I hope this video was useful for you. Feel free to give me a like, subscribe to my channel, or leave your questions below. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and until then, happy sketching.